There's something I want to say right at the start of this video, before we get into any science, before any recipes or routines, and I want you to really hear it. If you've been dealing with this quietly, you are not less of a man, not even slightly. I'm Dr. Fernanda Oliveira, board-certified urologist, and for over 15 years, I have sat across from men of all ages, all backgrounds, all walks of life, and had this exact conversation. Men who built careers, raised families, carried enormous responsibility their entire adult lives, and who came to me barely able to say out loud what was bothering them. Because what was bothering them felt too personal, too tied to their identity, too loaded with shame that, frankly, they never deserved to carry in the first place. So this channel exists for exactly that reason, to have the conversations that don't happen enough, to give you honest, practical, science-based information that actually helps, without judgment, without embarrassment, and without a prescription pad as the first and only answer. Today we are talking about erection quality, specifically why erections often change after 50, why they may not last as long, why they may not feel as firm or as reliable as they once did, and what a simple, affordable, homemade habit can do to support the physical side of that equation, starting tonight. My dear friend, if this is something you've been experiencing, I need you to understand something before we go any further. You are not alone, not remotely. Millions of men across this country are navigating these exact same changes right now, and the overwhelming majority of them have never once spoken about it to anyone, not to their doctor, not to their partner, not to a single person. They carry it privately, and over time, that private weight becomes heavier than the physical issue itself. Because here is what happens, and I see this pattern constantly in my practice. A man notices that things aren't working quite the way they used to. Maybe it happens once and he dismisses it. Stress, he tells himself. Tired night, not a big deal. But then it happens again and again. And gradually, almost without him realizing it, he starts approaching intimacy differently, with hesitation, with a low-grade anxiety that wasn't there before. He might start avoiding situations where the issue could arise. And that avoidance, that quiet withdrawal from something that used to be natural and enjoyable, begins to affect his relationship, his self-image, and his overall sense of vitality in ways that extend far beyond the bedroom. One of my patients, a man in his late 50s, told me something that has stayed with me. He said he hadn't realized how much of his confidence, his general daily confidence, not just in intimate moments, had been quietly eroded by this issue over the course of about 2 years. He described feeling like he was operating at a reduced version of himself. And when we identified the physical causes and began addressing them systematically, it wasn't just the intimate performance that returned. It was him, his energy, his ease, his sense of being fully present in his own life. That is what I want for every man watching this today. Now let's talk about what's actually happening biologically, because this is where most of the shame and confusion comes from. Men assume this is about desire, or about their partner, or about something psychological they should be able to simply overcome with enough willpower. And while the mind certainly plays a role, which I'll come back to in a moment, the primary driver of these changes after 50 is physiological. It is vascular. And once you understand that, the whole picture shifts. An erection is, at its core, a circulatory event. When arousal begins, the brain sends signals that trigger the release of a molecule called nitric oxide in the blood vessel walls of the erectile tissue. Nitric oxide tells those vessels to relax and dilate. Blood rushes in, fills the specialized chambers of tissue inside the penis, and an erection forms and is maintained by the pressure of that blood staying in place. It is a precise, elegant, and entirely blood flow dependent process. Now think about what age does to that process. Nitric oxide production naturally declines as men get older. The blood vessel walls themselves become slightly less flexible, slightly less responsive to the signals they receive. Circulation overall becomes a little less efficient, and the result is that the same arousal that would have produced a strong, lasting erection at 35 now produces something weaker, something that may not sustain as long, something that requires more and delivers less. Think of it like garden hoses again. A new, flexible hose with strong water pressure. You turn the tap and water flows powerfully and consistently from one end to the other. But take that same hose, let it sit outside through a few winters, let it stiffen and narrow slightly at the fittings, and the flow changes, the pressure drops. You can turn the tap all the way up, but what comes out the other end is fundamentally limited by the condition of the hose itself. That is your vascular system after 50, if it isn't being actively supported. And here is the thing about the psychological piece I mentioned earlier: the anxiety, the hesitation, the avoidance. It doesn't exist separately from the physical. They are deeply, directly connected. When a man begins experiencing unreliable erections, his body's stress response activates around intimacy. Cortisol rises, adrenaline rises, and both of those hormones actively constrict blood vessels, the exact opposite of what needs to happen for an erection to form and last. So the anxiety about the problem literally makes the problem worse. It becomes a loop, a physiological feedback cycle that tightens with every experience of disappointment. This is why addressing the physical foundation first is so important. When the vascular system is better supported, when circulation improves, when the body has the nutrients it needs to produce nitric oxide more efficiently, the physical performance begins to stabilize. And when the physical performance stabilizes, the anxiety begins to lift. The loop reverses. Confidence returns not through affirmations or willpower, but through the body simply working better. And this is where something as humble as a homemade nightly drink becomes genuinely meaningful. I want to explain the science behind why this works, because I think it will surprise you how direct the connection is between a few simple kitchen ingredients taken at the right time of night and the quality of your circulation and hormonal recovery while you sleep. Your body's most powerful window for vascular repair and testosterone regulation is not during the day, it's at night. During deep sleep, those slow wave cycles that your body moves through in the first half of the night, growth hormone is released, tissue repair accelerates, and testosterone production reaches its daily peak. The quality of that overnight process has a direct and measurable impact on how you feel, how you function, and yes, how your body performs in intimate situations. But that process depends on certain inputs being present, and one of the most critical, one that is chronically low in a startling proportion of men over 50, is magnesium. Magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the human body. For our purposes today, what matters most is this: magnesium helps smooth muscle tissue relax, and your blood vessels are lined with smooth muscle. When magnesium levels are adequate, those vessels are more responsive. They dilate more readily when they receive the nitric oxide signal. Blood flows more efficiently, and the entire vascular mechanism that underlies erection quality functions closer to the way it did when you were younger. When magnesium is low, which, as I said, is remarkably common in men over 50, often without any obvious symptoms that would alert them to the deficiency, that vascular responsiveness diminishes. Sleep becomes shallower. Testosterone production is less robust. Circulation suffers quietly, and men feel it in ways they often can't quite name or explain. The good news, and I want you to hold on to this, is that this is correctable. The body responds. Vascular tissue is not static. It adapts to the inputs it receives. And when you begin giving it the right inputs consistently at the right time, the improvements are real and they are progressive. The drink I'm going to share with you in just a moment combines magnesium with several natural ingredients that work alongside it to support circulation from multiple angles simultaneously. Ginger, which has been studied for its effects on vascular function and blood flow. Ceylon cinnamon, which supports the stable overnight blood sugar environment that allows testosterone production to proceed without hormonal interference. And raw honey, which supports liver glycogen stores and helps prevent the cortisol spikes that disrupt sleep and suppress testosterone in the early morning hours. Together, these ingredients don't just make a pleasant, warm drink. They create a targeted nutritional environment that prepares your body's circulatory and hormonal systems for the best possible overnight recovery. And as I always say, please keep in mind that this information is educational, offered in genuine care, and is not a substitute for individualized medical advice. If you are experiencing severe or sudden symptoms, please see a qualified urologist directly. But for the man watching this right now who recognizes himself in what I've described, the gradual changes, the quiet frustration, the hope that something simple might actually help, I want you to stay right here. Because in just a moment, I'm going to give you the complete recipe, the exact routine, and the two mistakes that most men make when they try this that prevent it from working the way it should. And one of those mistakes is something almost every man does without realizing it. Something that directly undermines circulation and hormonal recovery at the exact moment the body needs both the most. Don't go anywhere. All right, let's get into the practical half of this conversation. Because everything I've shared with you so far, the vascular science, the nitric oxide connection, the overnight recovery window, it all leads here to what you actually do tonight, tomorrow night, and the night after that. But I'm starting with the mistakes because I've learned over 15 years of practice that the difference between the men who see results and the men who don't is rarely the information itself. It's the habits that quietly undermine everything while they're trying. And these two are so common, so normalized, that most men don't even recognize them as problems. The first one involves circulation directly. And it's this. Most men who come to me concerned about erection quality have spent years, sometimes decades, treating exercise as optional. They were active in their 30s, maybe they played a sport, went to the gym, stayed reasonably fit. But somewhere in their 40s or 50s, as work got busier and the body got stiffer and recovery took longer, movement became something that happened occasionally rather than consistently. And the circulatory system felt that shift in ways that accumulated silently over time. I am not about to tell you that you need to start training like an athlete. That is not what this is about. And frankly, for most of the men I work with, that kind of dramatic prescription leads nowhere because it's not sustainable. What I am going to tell you is that the single most accessible, most immediately effective thing you can do for your vascular health, starting today, is walk. A short walk after dinner, 10 minutes, 15 if you enjoy it. Nothing strenuous, nothing that requires equipment or a gym membership or a change of clothes. Just deliberate movement in the evening hours, after your last meal, before your body begins its transition toward sleep. Here is what that walk does physiologically. It stabilizes your post-meal blood sugar, which prevents the insulin spike that would otherwise create a cascade of hormonal disruption overnight. It drives fresh, oxygenated blood through your peripheral circulation, through your legs, your pelvis, the very region we're trying to support. It begins to lower cortisol and activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the branch of your nervous system responsible for rest, digestion, and yes, arousal. And it prepares your vascular system to enter the night in a more open, relaxed, receptive state. 10 minutes. That is a completely reasonable ask, and the return on that small investment is disproportionately large. The second mistake is one I touched on earlier, but want to address directly now because it sits at the center of so many cases I see. Poor sleep. Chronic, normalized, accepted poor sleep. Men over 50 who are getting 5 or 6 hours a night and have quietly decided that this is simply how things are now, that they're lighter sleepers than they used to be, that the body just needs less sleep with age. And I understand why they believe that, because it feels true from the inside. You adapt to a reduced sleep state the same way you adapt to any chronic condition. It becomes your new baseline, and the distance from your old baseline becomes invisible. But here is the biological reality. Testosterone production in men occurs almost entirely during sleep, specifically during the deep, slow-wave stages of sleep that require adequate duration and continuity to fully cycle through. Research has shown that men sleeping fewer than 6 hours per night can have testosterone levels measurably lower than men of the same age sleeping 7 to 8 hours. Not slightly lower, meaningfully lower. And lower testosterone affects energy, mood, body composition, and directly affects the quality and reliability of erections. So when I ask you to commit to 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep each night, I am not giving you lifestyle advice in any vague or general sense. I am giving you a direct hormonal intervention, Protecting your sleep is one of the most powerful things you can do for your testosterone levels and your intimate function. And the drink I'm about to give you is specifically designed to support the depth and quality of that sleep, which is why the two work together so effectively. Now, the drink. 1 cup of warm water, comfortably warm, the kind you could hold in your hands on a cold morning. 1 teaspoon of raw honey. Half a teaspoon of ground ginger. Half a teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon. And I want to say one more time, Ceylon specifically, the true cinnamon, which you can find in most health food stores and increasingly in regular supermarkets. If you enjoy citrus, add a small squeeze of fresh lemon. Stir it all together, take 200 to 300 milligrams of magnesium glycinate alongside it, and drink it slowly 30 to 60 minutes before you go to bed. 4 to 5 nights per week is sufficient. You don't need to be rigid about doing this every single night, but consistency across the week is what builds the cumulative effect. Let me give you the full picture of why this combination works, because each ingredient has a specific and distinct role. And understanding that will help you stay committed to it even on the nights when you're tired and it would be easier to skip. The raw honey is not decoration. A single teaspoon of raw honey before bed provides your liver with a small but meaningful supply of natural sugars that it converts into glycogen, the stored fuel your liver uses to maintain stable blood sugar throughout the night. Why does this matter for erections? Because when liver glycogen runs low in the early morning hours, your body compensates by releasing cortisol to mobilize energy from other sources. That cortisol spike, which many men experience between 2 and 4 in the morning without realizing it, is one of the reasons they wake up at that hour feeling vaguely restless or anxious. And cortisol, as we've already established, is testosterone's biological opponent. That teaspoon of honey is a small, elegant intervention that keeps this process quiet and lets your testosterone production run its full overnight course undisturbed. Ginger works on the vascular side. The active compounds in ginger, the gingerols and shogols that give it its characteristic warmth, have demonstrated effects on vascular function in research settings. They support the body's natural anti-inflammatory processes, and they help blood vessels respond more effectively to circulatory demands. Many of my patients describe a gentle warmth that moves through their body after drinking this, particularly into the hands and feet, and that sensation reflects exactly what is happening. Improved peripheral circulation. Blood moving more freely through vessels that have relaxed and opened in response to the ginger's effect. Ceylon cinnamon contributes through a different but equally important pathway. Its effect on insulin sensitivity means that your cells process blood sugar more efficiently overnight. This keeps your metabolic environment stable, prevents the hormonal disruptions that blood sugar swings can cause, and creates a clean, quiet, biochemical backdrop against which your body's repair and recovery systems can work without interference. Think of it as setting the stage correctly, making sure the conditions are right for everything else to function as it should. And magnesium glycinate brings everything together. It relaxes smooth muscle tissue, including the walls of your blood vessels. It supports the nervous system in transitioning into genuine rest. It contributes to the regulation of testosterone metabolism. And the glycine it's bound to has its own mild calming effect on the brain that complements the magnesium beautifully, deepening sleep without sedation. This is not a sleeping pill. It is a nutrient your body was designed to use that most men over 50 are not getting enough of, and that at the right dose in the evening produces a noticeable and progressive improvement in sleep quality and vascular health over time. Now, I want to walk you through what the complete evening looks like when you put all of this together, because individual pieces matter less than the sequence. The routine itself is the thing. Finish dinner early, 2 to 3 hours before sleep if possible. Your digestive system should be mostly settled by the time you lie down, so that blood isn't being pulled toward your gut during the hours when you need it elsewhere. After dinner, take your walk. 10 minutes, comfortable pace, outside if you can. Come home, wind down. About 45 minutes before bed, prepare your drink. Take your magnesium alongside it. Sit somewhere quiet, not in front of a screen, not scrolling through your phone. Just sit with the warmth of the drink and let your nervous system do what it's trying to do, which is shift from the high alert state of the day into genuine rest. Dim the lights in your home if you're able. This is not a trivial detail. Light exposure in the evening suppresses melatonin, and melatonin is one of the signals your body uses to initiate the deep sleep stages where testosterone production and vascular repair occur. Dimming your environment 30 to 45 minutes before bed accelerates this transition meaningfully, and then sleep at a consistent time for 7 to 8 hours. That is the complete routine. Dinner, walk, drink, dark environment, consistent bedtime. It takes no special equipment, costs very little, and requires nothing more than the decision to take your own recovery seriously. I want to be honest with you about the timeline, because managing expectations correctly is part of what determines whether someone stays consistent or gives up. You will probably not feel dramatically different after the first night. You might sleep slightly better. Some men notice that immediately. But the deeper changes, the improvements in circulation and hormonal balance and morning erection quality, those build over weeks, not days. Most of my patients begin noticing meaningful shifts somewhere between the third and fifth week. Sleep quality usually improves first, then morning energy, then gradually the thing they came to me hoping to address: stronger, more reliable mornings, more confidence going into intimate situations, a quiet return of something they had begun to assume was simply gone. One of my patients, a man in his late 50s, married for over 30 years, who had been dealing with this for the better part of 3 years before he finally brought it up in my office, came back after about a month of following this routine. And he didn't use medical language or clinical descriptions to tell me how things had changed. He just said his wife had noticed, and he was smiling when he said it. That is the outcome that matters, not a lab value. A man and his wife reconnected because he decided to take one small daily action on behalf of his own health. That is available to you, right now, starting tonight. A final word, because I always mean this genuinely. Please remember that what I share on this channel is educational information, offered with real clinical care behind it, but it is not a replacement for proper medical evaluation. If you are experiencing pain, sudden changes in function, or any symptoms that feel serious or significant, please see a qualified urologist. Get examined. These habits are appropriate and beneficial for the vast majority of men dealing with age-related changes, but your individual situation deserves individual attention when necessary. For everyone else, for the man who has been quietly carrying this and is ready to do something about it, tonight is a perfectly good place to start. Go to the comments right now and type the words, "I'm trying this tonight." Say it out loud, even just in a comment, because the act of commitment matters. It tells your own mind that this time you mean it. And it tells every other man watching this that he is not alone. If this video helped you today, please subscribe to this channel. Every week, I bring you honest, practical, evidence-informed guidance to help men over 50 feel strong, confident, and fully alive in their bodies. No shame, no gimmicks, just real information from someone who genuinely cares about your well-being. Your body is more capable of recovery than you may currently believe. Give it the right support, give it consistent time, and let it show you what it can still do. I'll see you in the next one, my friend. Take good care of yourself.